HOA, three letters that could bring some strong emotions if you've ever had to deal with one. Do they restrict your freedoms? Are homeowners associations a way to keep values high, or are they a little of both? How best to deal with your HOA? That's today's Joe Knows Better. I'm Joe Ducey with the Better Business Bureau, and this is Joe Knows Better. Coming to you from the wonderful BBB Phoenix campus, the podcast studio is here. BBB's VP of Operations, Michelle Marin, is with us.
Good morning.
Glad you're here. Also, Jonathan Brown and Netty, Ralone with GUD Community Management.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being
Excited
here.
to be here.
Well, we're going to be talking about HOAs, and I know a lot of people are interested in HOAs. In fact, a lot of the people in this area and in California have HOAs, right?
That's right.
It's becoming more and more. How many HOAs do you manage right now?
We manage about 220 here in Arizona.
All right. And how many of those are really bad?
None of them, right? That's the right answer,
That's
I
the
think.
right answer.
Right?
That's good. You can't name names. I can't, nothing?
No,
You're
no.
like, this
but
one and this one? No.
I'm not going to get anything out of you.
There's always a challenge, but, everyone's wanting to make their community better, which is, what we want.
So is that like the goal of an HOA then, is to just make the community better?
I think at the end of the day, yes. What we're trying to do is help the association maintain itself, right? Just like a municipality. The cities here, you got people that are strongly opposed and strongly for certain taxes or other projects that the cities are working on. Same applies in an HOA, whether it's a playground or streets or basic infrastructure maintenance. Some people don't want to spend those dollars. Some people do, and we're there to help them when they're ready to work on those types of things.
Now, we hear about all the bad things that happen. When we talk to each other and we have HOAs, it's like, oh, man, they just keep preventing me from doing this, or I can't do that in my own house. I own it. Why are they telling me what to do, right? I guess let's get to the positive things, right? Because we're going to have plenty of time to talk about the other stuff.
Yeah.
But what are some of the positive things you think that HOAs could do for a community, or a reason to have one?
I think the core of it is the value add, right? So what are those dollars going towards? They call them assessments. So whether it's quarterly, monthly, annually, homeowners are paying assessments towards the association. So what is the value that they're getting out of that? Really, it's going to come down to what the association maintains. The association typically will maintain the park areas, like I said, the playgrounds. If your association has a gate, you're probably going to be a private street, which means the association's responsible for that. And I'm sure the municipalities are happy not having to maintain those streets. And then when you're in a condominium, which is also an association, you got that infrastructure. You've got roofs that you have to maintain. You've got sewer lines you have to maintain. You've got main lines that you have to maintain. So there's a lot going on there, and that's really what the value is that the association brings, is making sure those are taken care of, so the homeowner doesn't necessarily have to think about or worry about those on a daily basis.
Okay. And what do you think about, then you get to the other things, though. They also can regulate paint colors in a house, right? Or they can regulate where you can park.
Yeah.
Right? Because of streets. So that's, I think, when you get into the that's not right, this is my property, why can't I do this type issues, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So your argument basically for HOAs is like it makes it easier for homeowners in some ways. Also, property values are maintained because there are restrictions and codes.
That's right. And there's governing documents for the association that are what dictate what the association can and cannot do. So in that example, there are sometimes colors specific for the association where a homeowner may say, okay, it's not 1990 anymore. Those aren't colors I would ever want on my home.
Yeah.
So I agree with those types of arguments. Really what I tend to recommend for those homeowners who may be frustrated on something like a paint color variation that they're requesting is to reach out to the association's manager and say, hey, I'd like a variance, and how can I help create a new color palette? A lot of the times that's something that could easily resolve the issue, is finding some updated color palettes.
I want to add, Joe, to, I think their HOAs do get a bad rap, but most homeowners actually, I would think if you talk to most homeowners, they love being in their HOA. And unfortunately, it's the silent majority, the loud majority that kind of everyone hears the negative about HOAs.
And they like being in an HOA. You think why?
Because one, there is value in all your neighborhood looking nice.
Sure.
I don't think anyone would argue that they don't value having their neighborhood looking nice and their property value going up and trash being picked up in the community. No one's going to complain about it. And when you have an HOA that enforces things and makes sure that the community looks nice, the whole environment of the community is a lot better too.
So go ahead. Do you have some?
No, I guess my whole thing with the advancement of the property value so the roofs on the condominiums and all of that is part of that increase because that's properly maintained regularly, or would that be part of the value, I guess?
That's part of the cost of it, right?
Okay.
But if somebody's going to sell their condominium and they say a new roof is on this condominium, it's probably going to sell pretty well with somebody knowing I'm not going to have to deal with leaks or any other issues.
Right.
But if you're an association from, the 70s or 80s that's had deferred maintenance, meaning you haven't taken care of that over the last 30, 40 years, you're going to have problems, and those values are going to go down for the association as well if they're not being properly maintained.
That seems like a great value to people. I mean,
right.
Just to know that maintenance has been regularly looked at.
And I don't think people think about that all the time. I mean, they think they do think. I think when people start thinking about their HOAs, it's when there's something negative. They're preventing me from doing something, right? I mean, we had that paint color thing at our place. They wanted a desert color. We picked a brown. It isn't the brown they wanted. We tried 3 browns, and we said, hey, there's a brown over here. It looks just like the brown we want, right?
Right.
Why can't
It's
that?
not the
Why
right
why are
brown.
they allowed? Why aren't they? It's like in that stuff. And it's like, no. It's like, so we had to pick a color within their palette, and it's like everything looked the same. It's like Stepford houses, just this community, and that's where people don't want to live.
Right.
So in those situations, how do people get what they want? What's the best way to try to get what you want?
What I'm going to say to that is vocalize in a way where you're heard, but you're not necessarily a keyboard warrior or somebody who's going on the offensive.
Because that doesn't work?
That does not work most of the time, surprisingly.
Sure. Okay.
So what we really want to see is a homeowner addressing the issue in a calm manner, saying, hey, I'd like a variance, and here's why, right? Go through the process of why. On the other side of that table, the manager is not necessarily dictating the yes or no. It's actually an architectural committee or the board of directors, which are volunteer members of the association, owners of that association, that are making that final call. And you may have somebody on there that probably has, not a great taste in paint and telling you, sorry, I don't like your color of brown.
Can you name any names?
More than I can count, but at the end of the day, that's what you want to look for.
Okay, so you were going to get into that a little bit about who makes the decisions on these things. It's not you guys as the community managers, right?
I think that's a common misperception
right.
that we see here at BBB with complaints is people don't know who to go to or where to complain to or bring their concerns.
Yeah. And then, so that's a question, like where do they go? But also, is it the board? They have to go to the board, and then the board decides, and it's maybe 6, 8, 10 people, and they have individual committees that make these decisions, or what?
So a couple of different factors there. One, going back to the governing documents we talked about earlier, those are basically your laws of the land. So you want to start there and say, well, what does it allow for the association to do? And that includes the board of directors making that decision.
Okay.
So most of the time you're going to meet with them in the board meeting. You're going to have your few minutes to be able to air your grievances or express your opinion on something. But that doesn't mean you can't email the manager beforehand and say, this is what I'd like as a topic for the upcoming meeting.
Okay.
Is that best practice to do that then?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, Joe, if I had a $1 for every time I asked the homeowner, what community do you live in, and they name our company, I'd be rich. Because
not the right answer.
Well, you got your company name out there.
Yeah,
you're doing a good job with that somehow.
You'd be surprised how many people just think that our company is the say-all for that HOA. I mean, it's like a daily basis. I will talk to someone, and they think that I'm the one that makes the decisions for the community.
You don't.
But we don't. Yeah.
What did you do? What does your community management team do?
So we're basically a consulting firm. That's the best way to think about it.
What would be a common thing that you would be involved with?
The day-to-day operations
Okay.
is basically what we're trying to take off the plate of the board of directors.
Okay.
Because technically our job can be done by the board of directors. Problem is they're all busy working.
Yeah, this
spending
isn't a
time with
full-time
family.
paid job.
Nope.
Right,
No.
they're volunteering their time to be on the board.
They get paid zero.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you would hire the landscapers possibly through their okay or within a certain amount of money that's given.
With their decision, yes. And we
Right.
can make recommendations and things like that. But ultimately that board will make that call. But we need to oversee that landscaper, making sure they're doing their job.
Okay. And what else would there be? Pools?
Pools, if they have a pool, going back to the common areas, your parks, your streets, anything that the association touches, gates, we're trying to oversee and maintain. You're also talking about delinquencies, homeowners that are not paying their
Collections on
assessments.
assessments?
Yes.
And that's
So you guys are
another
the
reason.
guys who send with things saying, hey, man, we're going to sell your house right out from under you unless you give us this money for the last 2 months.
Unfortunately, we're the bearer of bad news.
That can happen, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Wait,
Go
what?
to that. What is the law on that? Because I've seen people. How long does it take, and does it depend on the HOA or you can lose your home over not paying these things?
Correct. Those assessments are enforceable by law. And so what we're talking about here is, and the laws are changing and have recently changed, but in years past, it was 12 months or $1,200 delinquent in those assessments, where the association can then file a lien and move forward in proper procedures to eventually get to a foreclosure process.
$1,200.
$1,200.
That minimal of amount.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I want to focus on that real quick because
Yeah.
it can sound
Daunting.
petty or to say, hey, if you don't pay up, we're gonna do this. But if it's an HOA of 1,000 people, they can probably be okay waiting longer, right? But if there's an HOA of 200 homeowners and one person is a year behind on their HOA dues, that's someone's roof.
Right.
That's fixing a leak. So this is not money that the HOA is making a profit on. HOAs are nonprofits, meaning their goal is not to make money.
Right.
Their goal is not to make profit, just to make enough to pay for their expenses. And when people aren't paying their HOA dues, it can really hurt
impact
things.
people.
Yeah.
And Netty mentioned 200. I mean, there's associations with 4 units. So if you got somebody not paying 1,200 or
Right.
more,
Right.
I mean, that
That's a
hurts.
big impact.
It can
So
hurt.
you're saying they may not want the place, but this is what they can do in order to try to get the payment made for up to date. And if it's made, you're fine in your house.
Correct.
Right? After a period of time.
That's right.
Okay. So this is what they can do. Is there ever an HOA you said, no, I don't want you guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Correct.
Why?
Juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? So if we can tell from the onset that this is going to be a community that's going to burn out a manager, which that's an issue in our industry right now. Managers are quitting on a high velocity, high frequency because they just don't want to deal with the negativity that comes from being an HOA manager.
Sure.
So if we see that at the forefront, we'll go ahead and step down. Or if we, find out that they're in over their head in terms of projects and other things, we try to give them a reasonable expectation from the onset.
Do you see politics entering this very much in any way? I mean, American flag flying, I don't know what, signs in the yards.
Like national politics?
Yeah. Or state or local, just something where, do you see more and more of that being prevented or more arguments about those things?
I would say they've escalated a little bit, but I don't know if people bring them to the association per se.
Mm-hmm.
You'll
They're
get
upset by the neighbor having something like this, I would think.
right. You may get a few of those where it's
Right.
the signage or something that's uncomfortable for them, but if it's within the rights of that homeowner, that's where we'll shut it down. So I would say a little bit, but not as crazy as what I see online. Let's put it that way.
And does the HOA make those decisions, or do you say to them, probably in this case, we've seen the decisions made this way by most HOAs. Just you. In other words, would you inform them of these things and then they can decide where it goes?
To a certain extent, yes, but we're probably going to recommend that they get general consultations
Okay.
from an attorney or something if it escalates to that need.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So this is ongoing. I mean, it's not like we're going to stop having HOAs probably. And
Good point.
In Phoenix, right? Well, and I think in California, I'm not sure as much, but is it all new developments have to have an HOA?
I would bet my money on it.
Okay.
Everyone.
All right. And why is that? I mean, I can guess why it is, but why is it that the state would want an HOA with each new development?
My take would be that the municipalities no longer want to maintain those infrastructures, your streets, your parks, and things like that. They would rather put those dollars towards areas where there's larger amounts of foot traffic and vehicle traffic where the city needs to be maintaining those infrastructures. So you think about a community park, if it's a public street and a public park, but you're kind of tucked in a neighborhood, not a ton of people outside of that neighborhood are going to make their way over to that park. But taxpayers that aren't in that neighborhood are still paying for that park.
Okay.
So I think they see the benefit of, we're no longer maintaining those areas. You guys take care of it. We'll take care of the main intersections and other places of better foot traffic and vehicle traffic.
Does it save them money then, would you say?
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
Just depends on where they're putting it.
Yeah, I wonder if you're going to get any cuts though in your property taxes because they now have
Yeah.
an HOA that's doing your stuff. Probably not. I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah. So what are some? Let's have some fun here. What are some outlandish things that you've heard? You have to name. You don't have to name the HOAs, but just some stuff that they said no to or that were being asked. Anything come to mind where it's like, oh gosh, I don't think I'd ever. That hasn't come up, or give me some typical things.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Give me some typical things.
I'll go with
Yeah.
one right now.
Okay.
So we had a homeowner who is struggling with some debilitations and reaches out with some outlandish and inaccurate information via email. But again, keyboard warrior wants to put all of this in written form, so we've collected it all. There's been instances where this homeowner has said that we have entered the unit and we've done it in the middle of the night, and just these, again, outlandish accusations that make zero sense to a person who's seeing it from the outside.
Okay.
You're ninjas.
Right. Somehow we're doing these
Yeah.
things, but there's no, video evidence of this ever happening. It's just stuff that's being put out there.
Okay. You know what? I was telling you before some stories. There was another one. I told you I used to work at as a TV journalist and dealt with consumers. And one was, I told you about the guy with had a bench outside his place, and it was in a wrong area, and he was older, and he could only make it a certain place. He had his little iced tea and his crackers every day. So they wanted to take the bench away. Anyway, another one was a statue of the Virgin Mary. And the woman wanted it on her front porch. And it wasn't an area that wasn't, it wasn't like right out in the street, it was on her front porch. And the HOA said no. And that was an interesting one because, she wanted to be able to see it from her window. And and I guess it was not something the neighbors wanted. Now, in that situation, that seems to be kind of, pushing it. In that situation, I think they said there couldn't be any I forgot what they did. There was something that it didn't say, there was nothing in the bylaws that says no Virgin Marys in your front yard. But there was something like statues or something that they got around. What would you say?
I think that's something that's important to understand as a homeowner.
Yeah.
If you're in an apartment or you're in some type of building that's owned by a professional company, they have their lawyers and they have their protocols that they follow. They're rarely going to mess up and take away your rights. Yeah. But I don't think a lot of homeowners realize these people that are making decisions, they're not, this corporate CEO executive. They're teachers, they're nurses. They're just everyday people.
Yeah.
And these people the board members are doing the very best they can with the experience they have. And so, with that being said, there'll be slip-ups. Board members will slip up. If you and me were to ask about, our opinions on how a car looked or how a house looked, we may not purchase the same house, right?
Sure.
And it's the same thing for board members. They're going to have a different perspective of what they think is right or wrong. Sometimes they may slip up and they may kind of overstep it or may not or not enforce it enough.
Yeah.
But just know, they are trying, and that's where it comes to. These are people, and if you come as a person with a solution to these homeowners, to these board members, they're going to try to work with you.
So sometimes they're looking for, or maybe they haven't thought about it. Maybe it's been in the rules for a long period of time, right? And it could just be one thing. It's brought to their attention now, and they maybe took the easy way, and now they've been confronted, and now they're going to look at it possibly more. I would also think that if you do that and you're not happy, then you run for the board and kick out the people you didn't like, right?
You take
you may not win.
It's the same way you would go
so
in
a
a
democracy where you
local
just gotta
government.
Right.
That's right.
That's what my question was going to be. Like, what are the top things someone should do if they have an issue with how their HOA board is assessing the problems of the community?
We kind of went over a few of those things, but I think it's a good way to even end it. You know, maybe some things that people can do, like the best approach they could take if the HOAs, they don't feel like the HOA is listening to them, or there's something they did that's against policy. Yeah.
Good communication is always the best way to start. So when you receive some form of notice saying you're in noncompliance of the governing documents, or even if you're not and you just have a general query, getting that communication out to the manager, allowing them to understand what your concern is a great start. Secondly, we've talked about it, you need to attend those board meetings. I know it's inconvenient. It's typically during dinner time or it's during...
And they need to be posted.
Correct.
Right? If they're not posted, that's also an issue.
That's absolutely right.
Okay.
48 hours minimum notice to the association, notifying them with the agenda items. That's a new one. So you as a homeowner need to know what those agenda topics are going to be. The board will direct what those agenda topics are. Now, go attend that meeting. It's going to be an inconvenience. Make sure you prepare ahead of time, but come in with an open mind and understand that these are volunteers behind the desk, behind the table, wherever they're at. They are trying their best, like Netty said. They're going to do what they can, and know that whatever the result is, it is what it is. But I would say those two things are going to be the best way to at least get your information out there to the board and to the association.
And you had mentioned earlier to email them ahead of time.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let them know what's going on. Okay.
Yeah. And one thing I'd say, I have homeowners all the time tell me, why are you giving me this violation if my neighbor has an even worse thing?
Mm-hmm.
And I think...
why me, not them?
We know it as parents, right? If our kids say, well, why are you letting him get away with that?
Yep.
That is never going to be the winning answer for kids. It's the same thing in the HOA world. You want
your own family, but another family, like, why are they getting away with that?
Yeah.
My kid is,
Yeah, so you should come to that board meeting not trying to point fingers and coming with a solution. Every time a homeowner comes trying to point fingers and start with, well, everyone else is doing this thing. They kind of started with a losing hand when they start that way.
Well, I think it makes people defensive whenever you start that way. But also then if you're not happy, run for the board. Also, the Department of Real Estate, I think, has a complaint area for HOAs. I don't know how much they can do, but that's correct. Am I right?
That is correct.
Right.
And really, I don't think they are very excited to handle HOA issues. I think they really want to stay within real estate because they're two separate topics. But that is the case.
So I think they can have a hearing in front of them that it costs a certain amount of money. I think it's a couple $100. I don't know. You guys look that up. Department of Real Estate. If you go that far,
it's a process.
These guys would probably say, "Don't go that far. Try to handle it before it gets there." Right?
Yeah, that's right.
I have my credit to be a real estate educator.
Yeah.
And so I've taken classes, I've talked to them too. And I know, having done that research, even the Department of Real Estate, having talked to them, they would like HOAs to
they don't want any part of it.
Resolve it. Because it's a little bit more complicated,
Who
right?
does?
I'd be like, hey man, I don't want it. Give it to some other department.
It's the hot potato.
Let's pass it around. Okay, guys. Hey, a lot of great information. Thank you very much. And that is Jonathan Brown, owner of GUD Community Management, and Netty Ralone. Also with, what's your title there, Netty?
I'm actually community manager, and I do some business development.
So you deal with a lot of the people.
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan gets to sit and collect the money, and you sit with, I know.
Oversee. That's right.
John is involved too. Anyway, thanks for being here. A lot of good information. Michelle, great as usual. And hope you got some information here. We'll see you next time.